Is shipping Lokis my glorious purpose? This is my spoilery review of Loki episode 5, Journey into Mystery, and with all of the big surprises and shocks and twists and turns in episode 4, I anticipate this episode so much, and it was just as great as episode 4, and the whole ominous look and feel of this episode with the score, with just the look of it, the whole atmosphere it created had me on edge the whole episode. And with the end credit scene of episode 4, you see 3 people and an alligator, and in this episode they're confirmed to all be variants of Loki. So you got the boastful Loki, classic Loki, kid Loki, and then alligator Loki. And throughout the episode there's so many jokes like, are we sure that's a variant of Loki, or is it just an alligator?
Plus an alligator, which I'm heartbroken to report I didn't even find all that strange.
And we also have the question of, did Renslayer know that the timekeepers were fake? It is answered in this episode, and you are confused for a little bit because it seems like she did know they were fake, but then kind of she didn't. But she does realise that they are fake, and just like Sylvie and Loki and everyone else who knows that the timekeepers are fake, they want to know who is behind all of the TVA business. And I honestly think it's Miss Minutes. I think she's in charge of all the TVA stuff. And it's funny because there's a scene where Renslayer asks Miss Minutes to have all the history of the TVA, who built it. And it's funny because I think that is Miss Minutes, and so she's asking someone who's behind it all to find out information about who's behind it all to the person who is behind it all, if that makes any sense. And I was having a conversation with my sister, I don't know if it was after episode 3 or episode 4, where we said that at first it was weird seeing Sylvie a variant of Loki just as a woman. Just as a woman, as kind of a central main character in Marvel. I agree with her that I think it is weird seeing a female in kind of a leading role. Whereas we're so used to seeing these male superheroes, and then you see Sylvie, and I believe that she is probably going to die in episode 6, the final episode, because I can't see her joining the rest of the Marvel universe. I can't see her outside of this Loki universe. And that being said, I loved her more in this episode. I'm sad to see if she does die in episode 6. We see her come as more of a main character with her interactions with Renslayer back at the TVA, and she self-pruned herself, the smart ass she is. After Mobius and Loki were pruned in episode 4, we see where Loki ends up. He's in this place called the Void, which is kind of like a purgatory between death. Once a variant is pruned, you can't destroy everything about that timeline, so it just gets sent to the end timeline where there's some energy and matter left behind, which can't be fully destroyed. But then there is a monster on this timeline called Elias, who can fully kill the rest of that fragmented timeline that isn't fully destroyed. But Sylvie is smart because she self-pruned herself, as Renslayer told her that the only way to get out of this void is to use a tempad to create a time door to leave. And then that's what happened, but it's only Mobius that leaves the void, and then the rest of them hatch a plan. And throughout this episode you have a lot of interactions between the different variant of Lokis, and then President Loki shows up, who's in all the trailers and the promos for the Loki series, and I thought he was going to play a bigger role. I thought he was going to be introduced maybe in episode 3, could have been in episode 2, but then he was only in it for a couple of minutes for just one scene, and it's with them all betraying each other. Loki's doing what Lokis do. You can't hatch a plan and not betray someone. And so a whole bunch of Lokis hatch a plan together, but then they all just betray each other, and it is really funny. But before that, they were all just sitting around discussing their Nexus event, how they came to the Void. And Kid Loki reveals that he killed 4. I mean, what the hell? And then they all joke about glorious purpose, oh yes, Loki's glorious purpose, because it doesn't really turn out, does it? And classic Lokis talk about how Lokis are god of outcasts, which is really sad because it brings back what Mobius said in episode 1, where Loki was just destined to be bad so others could be better. And classic Loki and Kid Loki, they keep talking about, this always happens whenever we try to be good. We just have to be bad. We can't do better. We have to do worse. Which is really nice when classic Loki and Kid Loki agrees to help Loki and Sylvie to get to Elias so they can enchant him and destroy him and find out who is behind the TVA, because Loki realizes that Elias is just kind of a guard dog to whoever is behind the TVA. And there's a scene where Loki and Sylvie are kind of getting closer, where they share a blanket and they are talking about the idea of love, and part of me really likes it. I think it's really sweet, Loki and Sylvie kind of loving and caring for each other. But then also there's a small part of me that thinks this is really weird because you're kind of the same person, even though Loki was no, Sylvie is not like a Loki variant. She is just so different. She doesn't want power. She wants to destroy power. I don't know how their relationship's gonna like develop in the last episode. I am excited for it. And if you thought Loki and Sylvie's moment was sweet, oh my god, just before Mobius leaves, he's like, you know, it's nice to have a friend like you, Loki. And he extends his hand, ready to like shake Loki's hand. And then there's like a really long pause where Loki's like, I think he's not gonna shake his hand. I'm just like, Loki, what the hell are you doing? Shake that man's hand right now. You love each other. And he's like, nah, mate. And they hug. I would be lying if I didn't tell you I screamed. And I thought I was screaming a lot in episode 4 where Mobius was pruned and Loki was pruned and the timekeepers were fake. But then when Mobius and Loki hugged in this episode, I was screaming. Oh my god, that is literally the best birthday present I have ever received. Thank you, Marvel. Thank you, Loki series, for giving me that present. It was wonderful.
Thank you, my friend. You're my favorite.
The big climax of this episode is where Loki and Sylvie enchant Goliath to like make a little tunnel so they can get through to where the timekeepers are, the person who created the TVA. And it's so sweet because they hold hands and she's like, I need your help, buddy. You've got to help me enchant Goliath. I know you can do it. And he does. He's able to eventually enchant Goliath with Sylvie. But before that, they needed a distraction, and Loki's distraction wasn't working that well. And then classic Loki showed up again, where he was just originally just going to lead them to Goliath, but not actually help out and just walk away. But he comes back, and oh my god, he is so powerful. He creates a whole like empire, which is Asgard, and he just keeps rebuilding it every time Goliath eventually destroys it. But obviously Goliath is a little bit more powerful than classic Loki, and all that's left of him is his helmet, which is sad, man. I thought classic Loki was gonna maybe play a bit more of a role in episode 6, but just like I said with Sylvie, where I don't think she's gonna make it out alive, I don't see any world, any universe where these Loki variants exist out of the Loki series. Obviously in the comics, Loki goes back to Kid Loki and he kind of is like the better version of what a Loki can be. So I do see that kid coming out alive, but everyone else, it's not looking good for you. I really like this episode. It was just a perfect lead on from episode 4 and a perfect lead up to episode 6. Honestly, this Loki series knows exactly what it's doing. It knows how to tell a story. I liked how this episode turned more into a mystery of like who done it, who are the timekeepers, who create the TVA. And this episode seemed like so big, how it was set on the void. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because it's so like grounded in reality, like what happened in that series is literally real world events. It's so real that it doesn't really feel as like big and magical as the Loki series. So I just love this series like a whole lot more. The whole look of it, the whole atmosphere, how it makes me feel, how it makes me on edge and excited for every new episode. And so I'm really like fingers crossed for episode 6. I have like no worries for the final episode. I feel like this series finale is probably going to be the best one compared to WandaVision and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Like any expectations I had for this series, it's just gone out the window because this has completely smashed them out of the park. And that's the end of my review of episode 5, Journey into Mystery. Damn, episode 6, series finale. You're gonna slap me in the face, aren't you? Thanks for watching this video. If you like it, leave it a like and subscribe for more. Bye!